When I first began reporting from Moscow in 1989, when it was still the Soviet Union, the one big difference was that this was essentially a police state, and all newspapers, politics, everything was governed by the Communist Party. And as foreign correspondents, we knew we were monitored and watched closely, and in essence, we were the enemy. I tend to think these days in my job as diplomatic correspondent that I'm covering international politics and analysis, and they're often not the great picture stories, and often it's quite complicated, negotiations and summits. And I kind of think it's very important for people to understand, but it's not the glamour stuff that you get awards for, so I'm really pleased.
We're entering into quite an interesting phase where, for the first time, in a long time, academics are being raised on recognising the importance of impact and recognising the importance of getting out there and talking to journalists and policymakers and politicians. And in that respect, the PSA is a great vehicle through which academics can do that.
We've learned a lot from the experience with the book. We've learned a lot about how once an argument gets out there into public debate, you have to really, it's not just a case of putting the book out there. You have to keep championing your argument, keep correcting people who misunderstand it, keep communicating your core message so that it's understood. And both of us are very committed to the idea that academics who consider the data carefully, who don't have an agenda, can really contribute a great deal to political communication. We're very proud of what we've achieved in doing that with regarding UKIP, and so the next step, in my view, is to do that and keep doing that in all the political events that come forward. And we've got an incredibly difficult and contentious year coming in politics, so it's a great opportunity for many academics, not just us, but many academics like us.
I know that there's been many much more distinguished journalists than me over the years that have won this award, and I'm extremely grateful to the association, and it's a huge honour and was a total surprise. I don't really think of my work as up to the sort of academic standards of the PSA. Over the years, my style really has been to try and ask the questions that the public want asking, and that often other journalists are sometimes a little bit embarrassed to ask, to be honest about it. And I've now got to the age, 56, where I'm not really embarrassed anymore by asking any question, and it actually makes life so much easier.
It's a tough world, politics, and you spend a lot of your time fending off attacks of various sorts. But there are many of us actually in this business who are trying to do good things, trying to develop policy on the basis of evidence of what works, and I suppose to be recognised for that by the PSA is brilliant, and I'm enormously grateful for it. If you know from empirical evidence that an intervention will achieve a better result for a group of people, then why not do it? And you can pursue something that is popular and that will get headlines in the Daily Mail, but ultimately if the better use of resources is to do something different that will achieve good results for people, then you should try to pursue that. Now, of course, you live in the real world, you live under enormous and intense pressure, and I think in a sense growing pressure with the sort of rise of the populist right across the European continent. So it makes it in a way more difficult, but nonetheless it's what you should try to do.
I've been involved with the PSA for a very long time, and to have that recognition, even though, as I said, is it the Golden Dagger or is it the Hemlock Cup? Am I being seen off at the end of a lifetime? I think not. I think I've taken it as a real accolade and a recognition by people who genuinely are committed to both political education and to the wider democracy, which is so crucial to our survival. But I'm particularly proud of introducing citizenship into the school curriculum. I think without political education, without an understanding of where power lies, we're doomed. And at this particular moment in time in our history, we need that political education, that understanding, more than we ever have.
It's a tremendous privilege to have been given this award. So much has happened over my time in politics, and I think, in the Home Office, a number of significant changes have been made, reforms to policing, reforms to the immigration system. There's a lot there that I look back on and think I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. In a sense, being a councillor, you learn some of the skills for a Member of Parliament. You're dealing with constituents in your ward, people you're representing, dealing with their issues. But of course, once you become a Member of Parliament, you're part of that wider debate that takes place in Westminster and contributing to the political life of the whole country, as well as obviously looking after your constituents in the particular area that you represent. 2014 isn't over yet. There have been a lot of challenges this year. A lot of significant issues to deal with, a lot of significant issues to address. I have a very simple rule in life, and that's just get on. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring, and you need to get on and do the best job you can.
We need to do much more to recruit, encourage, support women and, to get into politics. Changes have taken place in women's lives, but it hasn't brought sufficient numbers of women into politics. So in addition to changes in political opportunity structures like quotas, which we can't talk about in the United States, but certainly work in other countries. In addition to those kinds of changes, we really need just more efforts on the part of parties, on the part of organizations, on the part of office holders themselves, on the part of just people in the community who know women who would be great in public office to go out and really try to encourage and support women to run. Men often are much more likely to be self-starters. They'll decide on their own to run for office. Women rarely do that. I mean, they need for people to ask them and encourage them and support them.
I think all MPs work differently. I use Parliament really as a tool bag. I'm not what you would consider a parliamentarian, certainly not yet anyway. I've only been there for 4.5 years. But I see it as sort of a tool bag. I dip into it to use a debate here or to lobby a minister there. Use and involve the media that are based at Parliament but also outside Parliament. So I think what you need to do as a campaigning MP is assemble a variety of tools to sort of model and mould the campaign that you want to achieve, and that's what I try to do. I use lots of different ways of trying to get where we're going, and it's a team effort, I have to say. It's not just me, there are other people in the team in the office and volunteers that are working on it, and we adjust the campaign as we see fit as we go along,
Well, it's very nice to be awarded a prize by your peers, by people in the profession. It's a book that matters a lot to me because there's a lot of me in it. It's sort of I hope not the end of my career, but at the culmination of this stage of my career. Organisations like the Political Studies Association or British International Studies Association make a lot of difference. They're the place by which senior figures ought to be able to spot new talent, mentor new talent. It's a chance for people to get together, to network, to find out that they've got people around who've got similar interests to them, to test their ideas. And I think it's great that the Political Studies Association does a ceremony like this because it brings the work of political science to a wider audience, and that's a great thing to do. This book is very important to me. It brings together lots of different things I've done with my life of war studies, politics, even my student politics as well as management. So it just is an important book to me. So having it recognised is really nice.
In my youth, when I knew Isaiah Berlin, I first met him when I was 13. He and my father had been friends in pre-war Oxford. But then when I was an undergraduate, I went to his lectures. He was a fabulously interesting lecturer. He spoke very rapidly, sort of express train. But after a bit, you got used to the fact that he expressed each thought twice in slightly different ways. So you always had time to catch up with how his thought was jumping ahead. And of course, when you read his books, you somewhat see that too. I reread many of them this year because I gave the Isaiah Berlin lecture at Wolfson College, Oxford. So that was an occasion to reread a lot. And I'm a great admirer, although perhaps in some ways not as pessimistic as he is about the powers of reason.
delight that I'm honoured that they've recognised my work. Worry that this is the sort of thing that they give to people who either are about to retire or have long retired. Well, I mean, I am about to retire, but I hope plenty of life in me still, and I intend to carry on working on these same subjects, such as Constitution, Scotland, equal marriage, and a number of other things. Nobody knows even what the UK will look like on the Monday after the next general election, because so much depends on the party balance. And there are so many possibilities that it would be very risky to even try to guess.
I'd spent 6 years kind of learning under other people and saying, well, this is what you should do, and then suddenly I was handed the module and went, now I actually have to do what I said I was going to do, and it worked. The important thing is getting hands-on, get excited, learn about something that interests you, and use that to learn about research. So it's through the PSA networks that you can talk to other people about what they're doing and get ideas and spread it around. And now that I've got an idea, I've had a lot of interest from other people through the PSA networks.
EU and UK relationship is a lot like some of the relationships you see on the Jeremy Kyle shows, you know, maybe a little bit broken, a little bit things going wrong here and there. So he thought this would be the perfect way to lay out our video and make it, you know, even more approachable for younger people who would be watching it.
I think it's definitely more entertaining, and I think it definitely makes it more accessible for people our age, especially the concept of Jeremy Kyle. It's kind of an emotive issue that a lot of people our age are aware of, whereas not so much with the European Union. So kind of trying to draw the links between those two, we thought that we get a lot more people interested, and kind of putting in a comedic value also we thought might attract more people.